36,902 new cases, the highest single-day spike in 112 COVID-19 deaths reported in Maharashtra on Friday. 5,513, the highest ever new COVID cases in Mumbai in 24 hours. 9 deaths in Mumbai. Violent clashes in Dhaka as Prime Minister Modi begins a 2-day tour for the Golden Jubilee celebrations of Bangladesh's independence. 4 supporters of a hardline Islamist group dead as the Bangladeshi police opened fire at protesters demonstrating over Prime Minister Modi's tour. The stage is all set for the polls. The first phase of elections kick off on Saturday. Polling begins at 7 a.m. ending at 6 p.m. The timing extended by an hour to ensure that COVID protocols are maintained. A big win for the Tata Sons Group. The Supreme Court backs the removal of Cyrus Mistry. Ratan Tata calls it validation. Hello and welcome. 36,902 new cases. That is the highest single-day spike. 112 COVID-19 deaths have been reported in the state of Maharashtra. 5,513. That's the highest ever COVID cases reported in Mumbai alone in the last 24 hours. And 9 deaths in the capital city there of the state. 9 deaths. Meanwhile, the government has decided that night curfew will be imposed in Maharashtra from the night of the 28th of March. Let's go across to Saurav Gupta for more on this. Saurav, as these cases continue to surge in the state of Maharashtra, the big question in everyone's mind has been whether there would be a lockdown. But the government seems to have responded by saying there's going to be a night curfew. What does the government hope to achieve with that, and what details can you add on the government's plans?
Well, at this point, the government seems to be deciding against a full lockdown. That's something that the government is saying that they will not be going ahead with. But they will be obviously taking other measures to include, to create situations where there's not much crowds. And one of the ways to control crowds is to not have people out at night. That's something that the government is hoping will help them achieve their goal of less crowds. Along with that, several other measures are also being planned. In fact, the Chief Minister Thackeray met all collectors today over video conferencing, but he's also made it clear that there will be no sudden lockdown in the state of Maharashtra, but there will be other measures to control the crowds and lessen the crowds, and also control the number of cases that are being reported.
All right, Saurav Gupta reporting from Maharashtra. Meanwhile, in the national capital, we have for the first time the active number of cases in Delhi crossing 6,000 for the first time this year. There have been 1,534 new COVID cases in Delhi. 9 people have died due to COVID in the last 24 hours. Active cases now stand at 6,051. And as COVID cases rise across the country, the centre has now written to states saying take necessary measures to contain the spread of the virus, especially during the upcoming festivals next week. Meanwhile, the UP Chief Minister Adityanath held a late-night COVID review meeting on Thursday, worried over a surge in cases in India's most populous state. A press release by the UP government said that the Chief Minister has once again asked for masks and social distancing to be encouraged in all public spaces and gatherings. But all of this seems to be falling on deaf ears, including those of his own cabinet ministers.
No masks, no social distancing at this meeting of BJP leaders with the UP government cabinet minister in Devariya. This was hours after Chief Minister Adityanath held a COVID review meeting with active cases in Uttar Pradesh rising to above 5,000, 2.5 times more than just 10 days ago. Crowds in markets and in gatherings are surging because of Holi. The state reported 836 new cases on Thursday. A month ago, it was 131. In his review meeting, Chief Minister Adityanath asked for increased testing at transit points like bus and railway stations. Officials were asked to encourage masks and social distancing at festive gatherings and to use public address systems to warn people about rising COVID cases. But such nudges may not be enough, and officials seem reluctant to enforce rules.
इस तरह की गाइडलाइंस रिट्रेट की गई हैं और सभी से ये अनुरोध किया जा रहा है कि इसका पालन करें। हम लोगों के पास जो परमिशंस के लिए लोग आ रहे हैं उनको भी हम इस बात को बता रहे हैं। परमिशंस में लिख के स्पेसिफिक गाइडलाइंस जा रही हैं।
Of particular concern is capital Lucknow that reported 235 or 1/4 of UP's total fresh COVID cases on Thursday. It was just 18 a month ago. The other big concern is that UP may not be conducting enough gold standard RT-PCR tests. Data is scant about the type of tests, but the state conducted 1.37 lakh tests on Wednesday, up 14% from a month ago. Prayagraj, formerly Allahabad, conducted a little over 20% RT-PCR tests of the 3,500 total tests on Wednesday, even though the Prime Minister had singled out UP among a handful of states, urging them to ensure more tests are the gold standard RT-PCR ones.
माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी उन्होंने भी इस पे स्टेप दिया कि हम ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा RT-PCR करें और ऐसे लोगों को जो जरूर चिन्हित कर लें जो पॉजिटिव हों, भले लक्षण विहीन ही क्यों ना हो।
Last week, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath had instructed officials on the ground that a minimum 50% of daily COVID testing should be through the RT-PCR method. But it seems things are not yet moving on the ground. With Vinod Dwivedi and Nitin Gupta, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
And in data just released, the UP government has revealed that 49% of the 1.44 lakh tests conducted yesterday were RT-PCR tests. Meanwhile, the safety of hospitals in Mumbai is once again being questioned after 10 people were killed in an overnight fire. The hospital built at the Dreams Mall in Mumbai. Most of the deceased are elderly patients and COVID patients who were on ventilators.
At least 10 bodies were recovered after a fire broke out shortly after midnight at the Dream Mall Sunrise Hospital, where coronavirus patients were being treated. According to officials, 70 patients who were being treated for coronavirus at the hospital located on the 4th floor of a shopping mall in Mumbai's Bhandup were moved to safety. 7 patients were said to be on ventilator when the fire broke out. During his visit to the hospital, Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray sought forgiveness from the families of the victims and announced 5 lakh rupees compensation.
अगर इसमें कुछ किसी की गलती होगी या कुछ भी अनदेखी होगी तो कार्रवाई जरूर होगी, लेकिन फिलहाल जिन लोगों का मृत्यु हुआ है सारे परिवार की मैं क्षमा मांगता हूं.
While the Chief Minister insisted that a probe will be conducted and those found responsible will be punished, former Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, who also visited the hospital, attacked the ruling government for not ensuring safety. An NDTV Bureau Report.
And the other big story, violent clashes in Dhaka marred celebrations of the Golden Jubilee of Bangladesh's independence. 4 supporters of a hardline Islamist group were shot dead in Dhaka as the police fired tear gas and rubber bullets at a violent demonstration that broke out over Prime Minister Narendra Modi's tour of Dhaka. Prime Minister Modi's 2-day tour, his first abroad since the coronavirus pandemic began last year, caps Dhaka's 10-day celebrations already attended by leaders from Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan and the Maldives. And NDTV's Kadambani reports from Dhaka.
There was a skirmish here in Dhaka and near National Mosque in Dhaka, and some people have been injured and also 2 journalists have been injured. This is the report some of the agencies are giving. Apart from that, there has been a violent clash in Chittagong, which is around 250 kilometers away from Dhaka, and in this report it seems that some miscreants tried to attack the police station and tried to throw the situation out of control, but police fired the rubber bullets and tear gas shells, and the reports which are coming in is that 4 people have been killed in these clashes. But let me tell you that these protests have been happening ever since the date was fixed, ever since the PM was supposed to come here, PM Modi was supposed to come here. But this is one group which is protesting continuously, that is the Hifazat group, and they have been continuously protesting. Apart from that, apart from these protests and these skirmishes, which the police says is mostly in control, even Dhaka had seen last week, Dhaka had seen some protests, but now the program has gone, the celebration has gone. It was as it was intended. The last day of this program was today, where PM Modi was a special guest, and Sheikh Hasina gave a very emotional speech here, and remembered Indira Gandhi, and also said that India is a very close friend. So this is quite an important visit and significant in many ways.
A special gesture by the Bangladesh Prime Minister, receiving Prime Minister Narendra Modi personally. The timing is both historic and significant. There are triple celebrations for the 50th anniversary of the Bangladesh War of Liberation, one of India's major military victories which severed Pakistan's diplomatic relations with India, as well as the centenary celebrations of the father of the nation, their Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. His daughter Sheikh Hasina has been the Prime Minister since 2009.
बांग्लादेश की आजादी के लिए संघर्ष में, उस संघर्ष में शामिल होना मेरे जीवन के भी पहले आंदोलनों में से एक था.
While Dhaka rolled out the red carpet, Delhi laid the groundwork on its spot, awarding the Gandhi Peace Prize to Rahman, who was assassinated in 1975, underscoring that this is PM's first visit abroad after the pandemic. And it highlights the priorities attached to what the PM called a friendly neighboring country. And Bangladesh is by far the biggest beneficiary of India's COVID vaccine diplomacy.
भारत को इस बात की बहुत खुशी है कि मेड इन इंडिया वैक्सीन्स बांग्लादेश के हमारे बहनों और भाइयों के काम आ रही है.
The Prime Minister spelled out his vision of spirit of good neighborliness in this article. After resolving contentious issues like settling borders, he writes a future within grasp where both people can study and work effortlessly. Looking forward to the completion of an oil pipeline and a rail link between the two countries this year. Working to allow Bangladesh barges all the way to Varanasi.
Our relations with India have now escalated to new heights. We laud Prime Minister Modi ji's neighborhood first policy. Sending vaccines for prevention of coronavirus to the neighboring countries, including Bangladesh, must be a reflection of that policy.
There are many contentious or outstanding issues. Bilateral ties were caught up in the rhetoric over the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act, with at least 2 Bangladesh ministers cancelling their visit to India in later 2019. Part of the political narrative in the election-bound Assam and West Bengal is based on infiltrators said to be from Bangladesh. The decades-old pact over sharing of the Teesta river water remains stuck. The handling of the Rohingya refugee crisis in neighbouring Myanmar, of which Bangladesh has borne much of the influx.
There seems to be a clear realization by India that even good bilateral relationships need to be worked upon, and that is what PM Modi's Bangladesh visit is all about. Building on historical ties, sorting out differences through dialogue and moving ahead together. Even Bangladesh wants this Shonar Adhyay or golden chapter to continue by the way it has honoured India in its celebrations on this momentous occasion. In Dhaka, Kadambini Sharma for NDTV.
And in a big win for the Tata Sons group back home, the Supreme Court backed the removal of Cyrus Mistry as the chairman of the over $100 billion salt-to-software Tata Group in 2016 and set aside the company law tribunal order that had reinstated him. Ratan Tata took to Twitter to call it a validation of ethics and values, the guiding principles of the group.
A rare personal comment by one of India's most respected industrialists. Ratan Tata says today's Supreme Court judgment is a validation after relentless attacks on his integrity and the ethics of Tata Sons. The Supreme Court has upheld the sudden removal of Cyrus Mistry as the chairman of the over $100 billion salt-to-software Tata Group. It set aside the Company Law Tribunal order that reinstated him. The court ruled that the actions of the board in sacking Mistry in October 2016 did not amount to the oppression of minority shareholders nor mismanagement. This gives the Tata Group a clear edge in future negotiations on the issue. Mistry is part of the Shapurji Palonji family, which is the single biggest shareholder in the Tata Group with an 18.5% stake. The bench ruled the valuation of shares of Shapurji Palonji Group depends on the value of stake of Tata Sons in listed equities, unlisted equities, immovable assets, etc., and also the funds raised by the SP Group on the security pledge of the shares. Therefore, at this stage and in this court, we cannot adjudicate on the fair compensation. We leave it to the parties to take other legally available route in this regard.
The order, which is likely to put an end to India's biggest corporate feud, comes as a setback to Mistry's SP Group, which is already struggling in knee-deep debt and looking ways to raise cash and pay down the debt. With camera person N. Ravi, this is Arvind Gunasekar for NDTV.
We have to go in for a short break, but after that we're going to get you up to date with all the election stories. Stay tuned. And the stage is all set for the polls. The first phase of the elections kick off on Saturday in Assam and West Bengal. Polling will begin at 7 a.m. It will end at 6 p.m. because the timing has been extended by an hour to ensure that COVID protocols are maintained. 30 seats are up for grabs in Bengal, and it is a battle royale for 47 seats in Assam, where the first phase, is a crucial phase for the BJP. Its landmark victory for the last time round was based from this region, and this time they're hoping to get a lead in this phase that will be unsurmountable. Ratnadeep Chaudhary reports.
We are reporting from Jorhat, one of the major cities of Upper Assam region. Remember, tomorrow the 47 seats where polling is going to take place actually consist of both the north bank and the south bank of the Brahmaputra in Upper Assam. So the entire Upper Assam and part of Central Assam actually going to polls, and the BJP would not only like to retain those 35 seats which last time it has won with its ally, but to increase its tally, because if what we are gathering from party sources within the BJP and what we have gathered through our visits across Assam is that the BJP might actually face a tough fight in the second and the third phase. In fact, BJP insiders say that they feel that they might lose some seats in second and third phase. So the BJP would like to capitalize on the advantage they have in this Assamese heartland of Upper Assam. Also, this area dotted by many tea gardens, and the tea votes would be very important. Remember, out of these 47 seats, at least 30 seats, the tea garden workers are the determining factors. And in fact, in the run-up to the elections, we saw high-pitched campaigning by both the BJP and the Congress. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had visited Assam at least 7 times. Union Home Minister Amit Shah have held at least a dozen rallies, and Congress leader Rahul Gandhi was here twice. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, the General Secretary of the party, was here twice. So just goes to show how important Upper Assam is. In fact, if we look at history of polls in Assam, whoever takes the advantage, takes the lead in Upper Assam, does well in Upper Assam, goes on to form the government. And this time around, the BJP would like to not only retain Upper Assam but increase its tally, whereas Congress and its ally would like to regain some of the grounds.
And the Madras High Court on Friday wanted to know if the Puducherry Assembly elections scheduled for the 6th of April could be deferred in light of the allegations that the BJP had wrongfully accessed and misused voter Aadhaar details, including phone numbers, for campaigning purposes.
Even as political parties and candidates are in the middle of a frenetic campaigning in Puducherry, the Madras High Court has asked why Puducherry elections should not be deferred. The Election Commission has been asked to investigate and report before the month end on allegations that the BJP is stealing personal information including mobile numbers of voters from the Aadhaar records, in order to reach out to them ahead of polls. The petitioner, this youth leader of the DYFI, claims the Saffron Party is contacting Aadhaar-linked voters in the Union Territory to join its booth-level WhatsApp groups. Around 950 of them, he says.
வணக்கம் சார், நான் பிஜேபி கட்சி ஆபீஸ்ல இருந்து பேசுறேன் சார். சரவணா பேசுறீங்களா? எங்க இருந்து பேசுறீங்க? பிஜேபி கட்சி ஆபீஸ் சார். ஓகே சார். சார் புதுச்சேரி மாநிலத்தை சராசரி மாநிலமாக மாற்றுவதாக மோடி வந்து உறுதியளிச்சிருக்காங்க. அந்த தேர்தலில் பிஜேபி சப்போர்ட் பண்ணுங்க சார்.
We have suspecting these numbers has been stolen by the BJP from Aadhaar. Every people have been started their own Google Pay accounts or Paytm. If somebody wants to bribe the voters also, they can easily use their phone numbers.
Though the BJP has negligible presence in Puducherry, it hopes to be a part of the new government led by the NR Congress as part of the NDA. So today, Nirmala Sitharaman promised 2.6 lakh jobs, 1 rupee bus tickets for students, free laptops to college students, free public transport for women, and two-wheelers for girls pursuing higher education.
Who has alleged that?
Yeah, the case filed in the...
So the case will be discussed in the courts. Why are you asking me the question?
No, what's your reply?
The lawyers will respond to if the matter is in sub judice, how are we going to respond to it?
With the Madras High Court taking a serious view of these allegations, the Election Commission is under pressure to get to the bottom of it. For the BJP, it's an embarrassment. But the big question, is it a tip of the iceberg or much ado about nothing? With Palaniswamy in Puducherry and Shah Vijay in Chennai, Sam Daniel, for NDTV.
And that's the news at this hour. Stay tuned to NDTV. We're going to bring you comprehensive coverage of the first phase of the elections beginning tomorrow.